two Amazon warriors go on a perilous journey to retrieve a legendary sword that can save their homeland. However, bad blood between their families might spell more trouble for their mission. The evil necromancer Kalungo and his army of Bayatans stand before the gates of the Emerald City in BC. Inside, the city's fierce Amazon warriors are training when their general, Tashingi, tells them to return to their posts. Diala, one of the best warriors in the group, argues that they're not finished. However, Tashingi yells at her to do as she says. After this, Tashingi and another general speak with the council's most trusted priest. He tells them that Kalungo's forces are unbeatable, and he regrets to say that only the legendary sword of Azundati can save them. Tashingi replies that the sword has long been gone, and they don't need magic to win this war. Meanwhile, Kalungo summons thunderbolts to rain on the Emerald City, eliminating a few people. With this, the priest tells the generals to take the spirit stone from the temple, as it shouldn't land in Kalungo's hands. Tashingi then tells Diala to complete the task along with other warriors. While Diala and her warriors are away, Kalungo and the Bayatans infiltrate the city. In the temple, Diala and her group take the spirit stone, but they soon find themselves trapped by Kalungo's minions. Still, the fierce Amazons fight them off, and they escape. Meanwhile, Kalungo gathers the city's survivors before telling the Bayatans to do as they please and take what they want. He then tells his right-hand man, Artan, to find him the biggest house in the city to serve as his base. Later on, Kalungo finds out that the Amazons were able to escape. Because of this, he punishes the soldiers responsible for the failed task, telling Artan to impale them upside down at the city gates. In the forest of the sacred grove, the priest and the Amazons seek help from the spirits, asking them to give them a sign that may save the Emerald Land. Unbeknownst to the others, the spirits have shown Diala an image of the sword of Azundati. Back in Imbisi, Kalungo offers 8 human sacrifices to Balgur, a sorcerer who provides him the power to summon thunderbolts. Balgur tells him to bring more sacrifices next time, as they have an agreement. Meanwhile, the Amazons reach the city of Shunar, where the Emerald's Land Queen resides. The queen asks them what they saw in the sacred grove, and all the warriors reply that they saw their spirits. However, Diala replies that she saw a sword glowing with inner fire. Tashingi gets enraged that Diala didn't share this while they were at the grove, but the queen silences her and dismisses everyone else. Once the others are away, Diala shares that she kept quiet about it because she doesn't know the sword's whereabouts, thus thinking that it was pointless. However, the queen's high priest says that Diala's story completes his vision, and now he knows that the sword is in a cave beyond the Pagash forest. With this, Diala gets tasked to retrieve the sword, and she accepts. Meanwhile, the Bayatan's commander, Arban, informs Kalungo about the rumors of the sword of Azundati. However, Kalungo reassures him that it's only a myth. In Shunar, Tashingi offers to send her daughter, Tashi, to aid Diala in her mission. After this, the high priest tells Diala that only she can take the sword from its resting place. The queen then speaks to her alone, telling her to work with Tashi despite their family's feud. Outside, Tashingi tells Tashi to kill Diala so that she may avenge her. Diala's mother cut off Tashingi's hand over a man, who then became Diala's father. Tashingi then hints that she planned the death of Diala's parents, though she denies the accusations. She instructs her daughter to kill Diala after she takes the sword so that Tashi can be the hero instead. She also hands a dagger to her daughter, reminding her never to disappoint her. The next day in Imbisi, Tashingi meets with Kalungo, revealing herself as a traitor. She informs him that the sword has been located and it's as good as theirs because of Tashi. Impressed, Kalungo tells her that she'll make for a good Emerald Queen. When she leaves, Kalungo's shape-shifting lioness, Akam, warns him that Tashingi may not be trustworthy. Because of this, Kalungo sends her to spy on Diala and Tashi, and if they find the sword, she should kill them. However, if she fails, she'll be as good as dead. The following day, Diala and Tashi bathe in a river, not knowing that a group of men are plotting to abduct and sell them to the Pagash. When the warriors get attacked, they find themselves outnumbered. Just as the men are about to take advantage of them, Akam attacks the men in her lioness form, causing some of them to flee. Akam leaves right away, leaving Diala and Tashi clueless. In Shunar, one of the queen's generals asserts that they should just assassinate Kalungo. However, Tashingi replies that a mere blade won't pierce his heart. The queen agrees, saying that only the sword of Azundati can save them. Meanwhile, a giant snake lands on Diala's neck and chokes her. As she lies on the ground trying to wrestle the snake, Tashi hesitates on helping. In the end, she chops off the snake's head, thus saving Diala. Back in Mbisi, rebels gathered to revolt against Kalungo's forces. However, because food is scarce, one of their comrades sells them off to the Bayatans, causing them to be imprisoned. Elsewhere, Diala and Tashi find a group of women hosting a ritual for their god, Avasha. However, the Pagash suddenly appears and starts taking the women. Diala and Tashi try to keep themselves out of the mess, but get stuck in one of the Pagash's traps, leaving them no choice but to fight back. Diala manages to escape, but Tashi gets left behind and thrown into a cage with the other women. As Tashi screams to be freed, Diala silently trails behind them. That night, Tashi and the other women are brought to the Pagash's base, where a ritual is held. The women tell Tashi to munch on a leaf to numb the pain, but she refuses. Just then, the Pagash takes two of the women, ties them to a post, and stabs them as part of the ritual. While they do this, Diala makes a series of traps in the forest. Before the Pagash can sacrifice Tashi, Diala appears out of nowhere and shoots blow darts at them. The surviving Pagash chase Diala into the woods, but are eliminated by the traps that she laid out. Meanwhile, a surviving Pagash musters all his strength to kill Tashi. Since she's tied up, she can do nothing but scream, but thankfully, Diala appears in time to save her. After Tashi is untied from the post, the two women free the remaining captives. Back in Shunar, one of the queen's generals offers to attack Kalungo without the sword of Azundati. Before the queen can permit this, the high priest offers an alternative involving transferring his soul into the spirit stone. However, he's not sure how effective this will be. Elsewhere, Tashi shares that she didn't think Diala would return for her because of their family's rivalry. Diala believes that they must put their past and their family's feuds behind them, but Tashi argues that the past is still relevant. Wanting to dismiss the conversation, Tashi offers to take the first watch while holding Tashingi's dagger in her hand. In Mbisi, Kalungo summons Tashingi to ask her about the queen's planned attack. Tashingi is angered for being forced to travel all night when Kalungo could have gotten this information from a spy. However, Kalungo reminds her that he's offering her ultimate power, yet she complains about merely traveling. He reveals that he also sent Akam to retrieve the sword as he doesn't risk leaving loose ends. He then asks her if she's willing to do anything to stand by his side, and she says yes. The following day, Diala and Tashi encounter a white horse named Haynar, which leads them to a native village. There they meet a mysterious woman who says that the horse shows her who she needs to see, and this time it's two warriors on a long journey, far from home. Before explaining further, the woman offers the warriors some food. As they eat, she shares that the sword of Azundati beckons from the Shining Cave, where 3 will enter and 1 will leave. Tashi then clarifies the situation, saying that there are only 2 of them. The woman doesn't answer, so Tashi leaves the hut in frustration. The woman then tells Diala to follow the plan until she reaches the hills. After this, she should follow the hills until she reaches the wound on the earth. Diala asks the woman if she'll be the 3rd person to enter the cave, but she replies that she can't share more information. Diala then hurriedly runs to Tashi, asking her why she left earlier. However, Tashi shrugs it off and says that they should just get the sword. After traveling in search of the cave, the warriors finally find it. However, they first need to cross a cliff in order to reach it. Because of this, they create a makeshift rope using a bunch of vines, which they then toss across the cliff to help them reach the other side. Diala goes first, and she successfully gets to the other side. However, during Tashi's turn, the rope breaks. Thankfully, she's close enough that Diala is able to pull her up. The warriors then embrace, thankful to be alive. Unbeknownst to them, Akam is trailing behind, and she easily leaps across the cliff. After searching the cave, the warriors finally find the sword of Azundati, resting peacefully before a fountain. As Diala takes the sword, Tashi prepares to stab her from behind. However, she can't find it in her heart to do it, so she lowers her dagger. Diala then turns to her, saying that she could never kill a friend. Tashi cries, hearing that Diala sees her as a friend. As the two embrace, Akam suddenly throws a dagger toward them. Tashi protects Diala from it, but she dies as she gets stabbed in the chest instead. Diala doesn't have time to mourn, as she gets attacked by Akam in her lioness form. The two wrestle, but Diala gains the upper hand and kills the lioness. With that, Diala mourns over Tashi's dead body before leaving with a sword in hand. In Mbisi, the queen and her troops have gathered before the city gates. The high priest reassures them that he'll deflect the bolts for as long as possible to allow the Shunaris to attack Kalungo's forces. However, Kalungo's bolts are too powerful, and soon enough, the high priest collapses when his energy gets drained. Right away, Kalungo rains thunderbolts on the Shunaris. Meanwhile, Diala heads back to the mysterious woman's hut. She tells her everything that happened and expresses how she wouldn't get to Mbisi on time, as it would take days to get there. However, the woman tells her that her horse, Haynar, is more than just a horse, and her sword is more than just a weapon. Diala's eyes widen as she realizes that she's speaking to the legendary Azundati. She then asks Azundati if she's immortal, and she replies that she's just like the past, both deathless and dead. Right away, Azundati urges Diala to begin her journey. She tells her that Hanar will take her to the Wereways, which is a dangerous path. However, it has roads that go between time and space, which will allow her to get to Mbisi quickly. Azundati also reassures her that Hanar knows the way, and that the sword can kill Balgor if she encounters him in the Wereways. Before leaving, Diala asks Azundati to take care of Tashi, and the legendary warrior reassures her that she already has. Diala then begins her journey, and as she goes deeper into the Wereways, she encounters evil spirits. Just then, she sees Balgor, who tries chasing her on his horse. As Balgor gets closer, he jumps to her horse and starts choking her. However, Diala pierces the sword into his body, causing Balgor to fall off. In Mbisi, the Shunaris are starting to lose hope. Just then, Diala shows up with the sword, but Kalungo immediately rains thunderbolts at her. Diala easily deflects the bolts to harm Kalungo's own men, and with this, the Shunaris are empowered to fight again. In the middle of the bloodbath, Diala searches for Kalungo and spots him entering the temple. There, she angrily calls for him, but Kalungo silently hides. When he gets the opportunity, he quickly strangles Diala, which leads to a fight between the two. Kalungo uses his powers on Diala, making her feel pain internally. However, when she gains momentum, she mercilessly beats Kalungo. He then gets cornered, allowing Diala to cut off his head using the sword of Azundati. Immediately, Diala presents his head to everyone in the city, saying that the fight is over. In this instance, all the prisoners are freed, and the warriors celebrate their victory. After this, the queen speaks with Diala and reveals that Tashingi is a traitor. However, Diala reassures her that Tashi is nothing like her mother, and she even sacrificed her life for her. Diala also shares that Azundati still lives, which astounds the queen. After this, the queen asks Diala to be the new commander of the Amazons. Before she can accept, she suddenly feels a piercing pain in her abdomen. She screams that someone is killing her tree, so she immediately heads to the sacred grove, only to see Tashingi chopping off her tree. The two immediately fight, though the two are nearly equal in skills. Eventually, Tashingi attempts to cut the tree again but forgets that she's in the direction where the trunk is falling. It lands directly on her, ultimately killing her. The following day, Diala heads to Azundati's hut, only to find Tashi there. Diala is beyond happy to see her alive as Tashi explains that Azundati brought her back to life. However, the legendary woman has disappeared since her work was done, and the price has been paid. Tashi also shares that she saw how Tashingi died, adding that she did try to be a mother in her own way. It's just that she didn't know how. However, she's glad to have gained a new sister in Diala. The two then plan to head to the cave to return the sword, hoping that they won't have to use it again. Together, the Amazons ride on Hanar's back and journey into the distance.